Everyone, when starting out in overlanding, thinks that rooftop tents are just the best thing ever created. And today I want to discuss 5 reasons I think they really aren't. At this point in time when I'm making this video, I've been using a rooftop tent for about a year and a half, not quite. And specifically, I've been using the Smittybilt Gen 2 Overlander XL. I forget, it's a long name, but you see it here. You know what I'm talking about, and you've seen it in the footage that was just showed. But over the past year and a half, I've come to realize a few things that make rooftop tents not the best thing. Now, when I first started out, I assumed that rooftop tents were just amazing. And when I got one, I loved it. But there's a few quirks with them that you have to realize going into it. And I want to discuss those today. And I also want to start off by saying that I still love rooftop tents. There's a reason that there's still one on the FJ. If I truly didn't like them, there wouldn't be one on the FJ. I do like them, but you do have to realize some quirks with the rooftop tents. And as I go into the first one in this video, I do want to clarify that the rest of these points that I'm going to list out, it depends on what tent you have. So some of these points may be applicable to that certain tent, some of them may not be. A lot of these points I tried to generalize that they would fit in most tents, but obviously some tents are lighter, some tents are not as big, so there's different categories within that, but this is just an overall tent video. And this first point is that rooftop tents are big and heavy. Now, there is going to be some lighter tents on the spectrum and some smaller tents, but as a general rule, tents are just big and heavy on top of your vehicle. So what that does is that's going to affect your center of gravity. It's going to sit up a little bit higher. And with the current roof rack on the FJ, it sits up a lot higher than it should, and that will be changed this year. But what I'm saying with that is the big and heavy tents are just a pain sometimes. You know, to get them on and off is one of the biggest issues I have with rooftop tents in general. Is I don't like having a rooftop tent on if I'm not really going to use it. So usually I'll have it on for a month and I'll use it and I'll take it off for a few weeks and it'll just kind of go back and forth. And to get them on and off, it's a pain, and it depends how you put it on. For us at home, we have straps to the ceiling and we just strap it up, and it helps a lot, but it's still heavy and it's a big pain in the butt. Another issue with the heaviness and the bulkiness is the effect that it's going to have on your gas mileage. Now, we all know it's going to kill your gas mileage a little bit. I haven't done the exact math how much it kills it, but I believe it's like 2 miles to the gallon. It's what I've been getting recently and change. So it's going to be somewhere around there, and that's going to be dependent on vehicle type and tent weight as well. And my second reason why rooftop tents aren't the best thing in the world is that they take longer to set up than expected. Now, I will say that almost all rooftop tents will take less time to set up than a normal tent. So that is very nice, but some of them, you go into it and it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be an easy setup. And you do it and it takes like 20 minutes or more. So there is that where it's longer, but it's also shorter. So it also depends on what tent you have. Some of them pop right up and it takes like 2 or 3 minutes. This one behind me, if I'm alone, it'll take me like 15, 20 minutes. If I have somebody who knows what they're doing with me, it'll take, I don't know, 7, 10 minutes, somewhere in between there. So you do have to realize going into rooftop tents that it is not gonna be a just pop it up and sleep. You gotta do some things first. And again, this also depends on what tent you have. Some of them are way easier and you can literally almost just pop it up and sleep. There's a few steps in there, but as a rule of thumb, it does take longer than you should expect. Now, one of the biggest issues I never saw before getting a rooftop tent is the issue of having to open it up to air it out after you're done using it. So with any normal tent, you usually have to do that, especially in the winter. This thing gets soaked with condensation when you're sleeping. That's typical of any tent. That's not gonna be, you're not really gonna escape that. But the only problem with a rooftop tent is you have to pop it up and air it out, which again, you have to set it up and tear down, which again, any typical tent, you have to do the same. But with a typical tent, you can just take it home, let it air out in your yard or whatever, and let it there for a day or two. It'll be dry. If your rig is your daily driver, that might be an issue because you're gonna have to find time to open it up and air it out and leave it dry for a day or two, because if not, it's gonna get disgusting, it's gonna smell weird. So yeah, don't really let that sit. But I will warn you that if you're putting it on a daily driver, it may be a conflict sometimes of trying to find time to open it up and air it out. And the fourth reason why I think rooftop tents aren't the best thing in the world is that you have to pack it up when you're done using it. And I know you're sitting there laughing right now and be like, well, duh, you have to pack up any tent when you're done using it. But what I'm going to say is that if you're at one spot for, let's say, 2 or 3 days, having a ground tent is amazing because you can set it up once, leave it there for those 3 days and go drive around. Now, the problem with that is if you have a rooftop tent, you have to set it up, sleep, tear down. go about your thing during the day and then come back and do it again. So I will say, if you're at one spot for a few days, having a ground tent is kind of nice because that solves the problem of having to pack it up every single day. And another reason people really don't discuss with that is that you're not mobile when you have the rooftop tent up, which is an obvious assumption. But the issue with that is, especially if you're solo, is that you literally can't leave from any location you're at. So let's say there's an emergency or an injury or something just happens at the campsite. You literally can't leave until you pack up the tent. So that could be a 20-minute endeavor. And if you're solo and you get hurt, that could be a real issue because maybe you can't even pack up the tent to leave. So that is one thing that I've learned recently, is that I don't put the tent up until I'm ready to sleep. So let's say I get to a campsite and I'm solo, I will not put the tent up. Now, if there's another vehicle with me and I'm with people, I'll just put it up and we can use their vehicle to go and do things if we have to. But in an emergency scenario, rooftop tents will hold you back a lot. And the fifth and final reason is that your tent must be level, or I should say your vehicle must be level. And if you're sleeping alone, then that's fine. But if you're with other people, I don't really like to be rolling around in my sleep and hitting other people. So I just like to be level most of the time. Sometimes it's a little hard to find a level area, but it's pretty doable in most of the areas that I camp. And to close out this video, I do want to say that I still love rooftop tents. That's why there's still one on the FJ. And I'm going to be making a video soon about 5 reasons why I love rooftop tents. But I wanted to make this video to educate people, especially people who are just getting started, that rooftop tents, they look amazing and they are really cool. Trust me, that there's a lot of benefits. I would say more benefits to them than ground tents if you're overlanding. But there's also some drawbacks that may affect you and may just push you to be using a ground tent, because there's nothing wrong with that. So that's why I kind of made this video. And if there's reasons that I missed, comment those down below. I want to hear it. And I want to hear if you guys love them or if you hate them or you don't really care. Either way, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.